Hey everyone, welcome to episode 6 of the MSX Insiders podcast. Today we're super excited to have our classmate Abraham here. But before we dive into that, I wanted to spend a couple of minutes chatting about what we did last Friday, Jatin.
Yeah.
So we hosted the preview day for the incoming MSX 2025 class. We had a 40 plus attendees, I think, join, plus 20 of their SOs. So really happy to welcome all of those who could make it and those who couldn't make it to the MSX family. We're so excited to have you guys here. It was such a fun day. What did you think?
Yeah, a lot of the work that we did with the podcast, with welcoming new admins, actually built up to the day, right? So it gave us a good view of the process of how you actually go about selecting a class to having everyone in person. And what's great is it's like building a band. You don't know how all the pieces are going to come together until you put them all together. And when you get like 50 people out of 80 coming together in a room, you can see that magic, and it brings back the feelings that we had of the start of the program.
I can't believe that it's been a year since I was in that position, and we're already thinking about what to do next in life. And, our journey here is coming to an end, which is very sad, but super excited to have a whole new cohort of people that we can, build new relationships with as well.
Yeah, and we got some really positive feedback about the podcast, which is great. I think we got to almost over 1,000 downloads so far. So, it's good to get the compliment. Somebody was standing in line. They're like, your voice sounds very familiar. And they're like, yeah, it's the podcast. So that was pretty cool. I must say that was pretty neat. And I think also there were a bunch of SOs. We had an SO panel. They had a classroom immersion experience. So it was a great way for them to sample what's going to happen at Stanford, and a great way for us to see what it's like on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. And I guess, if we take that, you get to see all these cultures coming together, and it kind of brought back all the memories of, the things that we've done this year, like, the Brazilian barbecue. We have many Brazilians in our class, and a good few coming in the next cohort. The Japanese community organized a Japan night. We had a sushi chef there with a bunch of people celebrating with us the Lunar New Year. We had the Bollywood night and the Holi party a couple of weeks ago. So, with such an international community, we really get to immerse ourselves in different experiences. And it's a real global experience, because in some parts of the world, like South Africa, I guess, you're not going to have a big Lunar New Year celebration. And you get to experience that and see the lion dance and really ask people really basic questions about culture. And that allows you to build these bridges across the world, which is something that you don't get to do in many places in the world.
Yeah, we've talked about the multicultural community that we have in our program, and it was so nice to see that represented in the incoming class as well. I did get to do a bit of an introductory, welcome to them, and took them down a trip down our memory lane of, showing them pictures from all of these events, and you really get to appreciate it, I think.
I mean, I remember looking at that slideshow last Friday morning or Thursday evening, and it gave me goosebumps. I was like, wow, we've done so many amazing things as a class.
Yeah.
And you see all these pictures with everybody smiling, and people from all walks of life. You can see there's a multicultural representation there, and it just shows you what the world's pretty divided at the moment, but if you bring people together with a common purpose, you can still build a global society and community. So it gives us a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
And we've had many people represented in the podcast. I mean, I'm from Africa, and we've had people from Asia, people from South America, people from North America, people from Europe, and now we have my fellow guest from Africa, Abraham, joining us in the podcast today. And it's a pleasure. So I'll talk through Abraham's background, and then we'll jump into it. So
thanks for having me.
Yeah. The one thing that the three of us actually have in common is, when I was doing the research, is we've all worked only for one organization. So I worked for a Liberty Group in South Africa my whole career, Sasha at Bank of America, and Abraham at EY. So Abraham, you grew up in Benin.
That's right.
You moved to France to do a master's in finance at University Paris Dauphine. I was practicing my pronunciation before the podcast. And then you spent some time at EY in France, and then moved to Chicago, and then eventually spending almost 16 years at EY, where you're now managing director there. I know we'll have some conversations of what you intend to do in terms of heading back to the industry, but it's an absolute pleasure to to have you on the podcast. We've had a flavor of entrepreneurs coming here. We've had some, career people who've done various different things like Dowlands, and now we have, almost these lifers that have committed a large part of their existence to a corporate. So
the loyalty.
Exactly. So, Abraham, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks again for having me. I feel I belong to this podcast with you both in terms of loyalty, and I'm very excited. I think I will be missed if I don't say that I'm very impressed by what you both are doing with the new cohort. I was assigned a buddy because of what you did. I was able to interact with him before the event, during the event, and after the event. And so you are having a tremendous impact. And, this is amazing. So thank you for what you are doing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the first topic that we're going to touch on is something I think very near and dear to my heart, and I'm so excited to be chatting with you about it, about goal setting. You and I have been talking about this, I think, since the fall when we figured out that we probably need to set some kind of goals.
That's right. That's right.
And, figure out how to kind of even tackle this. Yeah. And I think it was, I can't even remember if it was in a class or if it was in some kind of a seminar. I remember walking out feeling a little bit overwhelmed. And, you approached me and you said, I've been using some of these frameworks to think about how to set some of my goals and make the most use out of my time here.
Right.
And we sort of started sitting down a little bit informally.
That's right.
Maybe every other week as best as we could.
Yes.
But I have to say that a lot of the things that you were thinking through and a lot of the frameworks that you were using were very helpful for me as well. So, why don't you just share with us a little bit about how you started thinking about goal setting and how you started thinking about what kind of frameworks can you use to even help set your goals?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think, first of all, it's very important to start and explain why goals might be important at the GSB.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because maybe let me give you what my week looked like at the GSB. Okay. Monday, we had in a class that you are the CEO of Nike, right? Tuesday, I had an investor in a class where I'm a teacher assistant. So I pitched to him the idea of my venture. So a lot of pressure after class. Wednesday, we had Salma Atman in one of our class, entrepreneur thought leaders at the School of Engineering. And then yesterday, we had in one of my class, the CFO of Instacart focusing on how to go for an IPO. And so on and so on. So that means when you are at the GSB, it's a different environment. You have to make decisions all the time about what you are going to do with your time and how to use it. And I have to say that I was lost, and I started to use different framework to help me to be able to make informed decisions, basically. So that's the story. And ultimately, it doesn't matter the framework you use. What matters is that you make decision the best you can, and then you have a story to share with your fear of missing out, right? You say, okay, this is why I did this. So that's very important to understand. I'm using different framework. I think where my approach at the GSB was, first of all, that one of the MSX 18 gave me an advice on a on a video I heard a while ago when I applied, was to focus on one topic every quarter. So what is the flavor of the quarter? So I started to do that. So beside the summer quarter, which is a different quarter, winter for me was focused on entrepreneurship, startup garage, and different classes. Fall was a focus on sustainability, ESG, climate finance, and different classes. And then this quarter, the spring, was on AI and some 390s. So that is the direction. So that means when I'm torn, I don't know what to decide, I'm going to say, okay, Abraham, the quarter of ESG is behind you, okay? So if there is an event on AI, like two days ago or last week, I ran into Jatin. He was going to an event on AI. I do have some room on my calendar for serendipity. I'm like, okay, event on AI. This is the quarter of AI. Just go for it. And then that's it's the very high level. And then at the lower level, what I do is I use a framework from Graham Weaver. He's a professor here, where you come up with some meta habit, and then every day you write your goals, basically. And that helps you just as a reminder. Yeah, so that's what I do. It's not perfect, but it's just like any framework. It helped me to guide my daily decision on what to do and not do.
I had every intention to incorporate that.
Yes, yes.
We talked about that a lot, right? Like the 5-minute journal, or
Yes.
you do at the end of the day, the 5-minute review
Yeah.
of your calendar to
Yeah.
make sure it's in alignment
Right.
with, what you're trying to achieve and what your goals are for that quarter.
Right.
And I wasn't able to implement that.
That's
It
okay.
didn't work for me. So I think the point is that, you said earlier that there are so many different kinds of frameworks. I think
Yes.
even when we get to the GSB, we're exposed to so many different ways of thinking and
Right.
different frameworks, whether it's provided by the CMC, whether it's provided by some professor. And you really have to adapt and find a way that it works for you.
That's right.
And something that you are going to stick to.
Mm-hmm.
So, following on that, how do you hold yourself accountable? Like, you
Okay.
decided that you were going to do this. Like, how did you make sure that you actually did it? Because that was one of the things I struggled with.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a journey, and we were together in a class, Touchy-Feely, where we talk about self-compassion. I think we need some self-compassion. Like, it's very difficult. There are a
Yeah.
lot of trade-offs to make. It's not easy. I hold myself accountable because I also involve my wife, in Marie-Ange, in those decisions. And so from time to time I will allow her to check on me. That's number one. Number two is, since I have a flavor only for a quarter, at some point the clock will tick, right?
Yeah.
And I will like, okay, I really need to take this seriously. So it's not perfect, but I hope to continue to do that in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, like, having you as an accountability partner
Right.
helped, even if, it was once a week or once
Right.
every 2 weeks that we
Right.
met. And maybe I didn't, do all of the things that I hoped to do over
Yeah.
those 2 weeks. But having that, like, touch point with you to,
Yeah.
like, rethink about it and
Right.
re-immerse myself in, okay,
Right.
what are the goals? Like, what?
Yes.
Let me start thinking about this again, was helpful enough for me,
Yes.
And I think, like, the year that we've been here is, like, such a journey. It's such a learning process and such an iterative process. Like, between those, 2 weeks that we didn't meet, like, sometimes my goals would change.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember
And
that.
that was, like, a very, I think, hard thing for me in the beginning, because I feel like I came here with this, idea of what I wanted to do afterwards. And maybe from where I come from, it's not really, like, looked so positively on that you keep changing your mind. And so that, I think, like, made me lose a little bit of confidence, or made me have a bit of uncertainty in terms of, like, one day I want to explore entrepreneurship, or one day I'm interested in fintech, and the next day I'm interested in VC. And I felt really kind of negative about it.
I see.
But to your point on self-compassion, I think that that's something you really need to embody, because we are here to explore.
Yes, we are here to explore. Not only that, but our meetings also help me to reframe my own goals. And sometimes you have a goal, but you don't know how to reach the goal. And that's the power of the people you meet. One thing that just came to my mind is at the GSB, you don't have class on Wednesdays. So I have to say that day completely changed my life, because it's a time for me to reset.
Yeah.
And most of the time, I will not do well on my goals the first 2 days, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad I have the Wednesday with no excuse, right?
Yeah.
So I try at least in the morning,
Yeah.
limited meetings. So, to look back and say, okay, you really need to do something. It's only 2 days left. So one of the habits I will bring with me in my future life is to clear my calendar on Wednesdays, at least half of the day.
Yeah.
And it's the mid of the week. It's very, very powerful because you can, you still have 2 days and you can still get things done. So.
Yeah. So let's put yourself in the shoes of the new admits. 1 year ago, you just got accepted, you just came to preview day, you've got 2 months before you start the program. If you could use those 2 months, what would you do before coming to Stanford? Is there anything that you would prepare?
Yes, so I think that I haven't prepared very well my entrance here.
I don't think any of us did.
Because I walk until like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before
Yeah.
so I did not have time. I had to transition all my accounts, have to meet all my clients with my successors, and I was traveling all the time. So, but I think that one thing that could help is to, how can I say that? To try to connect with the class, if possible, the alumni, what you guys have been doing, because it was very, very helpful for me to know how things will look like, number one. In my instance, it was a little bit different because I moved with my family, and in summer, the kids are at home. They are not at school, so it's not really, it's tough because they're at home, you are going to school, so it's different. But I think maybe one thing to do is to stay in touch with an alumni. Don't try to solve everything by yourself. At some point, the WhatsApp group was a little bit overwhelming for me at the beginning because you were working, and by the time you were up in the US, Jatin in Africa already sent 3 questions, and then by the time you go to bed, I don't know, Emery in China is asking 10 questions.
It's not overwhelming now?
At least now we are all in the same time zone.
That helps, right?
Yes.
I don't look at my phone for 1 hour and there's 30 messages.
At least now we are all in the same time zone and you know them, right?
Yeah.
So the advice will be, don't use the WhatsApp as your only source of information before you join. It can be a little bit stressful.
Okay.
Try to talk to your buddy, somebody, and trust the process. And people, everyone is nice. From time to time, you go to the WhatsApp group to get what you need, but you need to talk to people, basically, to talk things through.
Yeah, and I think we all people who like solving things ourselves, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of admin to be done, and we want to figure things out from first principles, but it's actually so inefficient,
it's
right?
So inefficient
because many people, just 80 other people do this every year.
Yes.
It's actually crazy. I remember all this admin, but that's also part of the process, and you learn about yourself through it, right? It's the little meta lessons that you take.
Yes.
So Ibrahim, if we shift gears a little bit and focus on research, right? You've done a master's degree previously, and you have these goals in mind, and you obviously can progress them through an academic way, which is classes. There's way of chatting to your peers, but then there's also this ability to kind of partner with a professor or a faculty member or a lecturer and do some focused research around a particular topic. At Stanford, at the GSP, it's called a 390, or that's the course code, which is the course code for individual research. Can you just explain, what the 390 process is like? What have you focused on in terms of the quarters, and educate our audience a bit about research at the GSP?
Sure. So the 390, I think, like you said, is an independent study that you can do while you are here at Stanford. So in order to do that, you need to come up with a topic, key milestone on how you are going, what will be your deliverables, and then approach a professor who will sponsor you, meaning that he will spend time with you every other week is the typical cadence, but depending on how busy he is, to guide you and help you with his network, with the network of his connection to achieve your goals, right? So the way I personally approach it is an opportunity to interact with people outside of the GSP. Because one thing that happens when you come here is you are so overwhelmed by what is happening around you that sometimes it takes a lot of courage and time to reach out to people outside of the GSP. So that was my approach, yes. I don't know if you have.
No, that makes sense. I mean, one anecdote I'd share on that is just, they do talk about the power of the email, and it's like a tool that you have to know how to use, right? It's not like you can just use the Stanford at stanford.edu address and expect miracles to happen, right? You have to, be mindful of who you reach out to. What hypothesis are you looking to test? What is your theory?
Yes.
What value can you add to the conversation? And typically, those unlock a whole bunch of conversations. I mean, just a useful anecdote, because I think there's this myth that you can reach out to anybody with the Stanford address and they'll get back to you. If you can reach out to anybody, and if you reach out purposefully, there's probably a 90% chance they'll get back to you. So that's just useful to know. And then, I mean, there's lots to pick. You and I have been passionate about venture and private equity in Africa. There's so much happening from an ESG perspective. There's the AI perspective. You talked about these themes per quarter. How did you pick a topic, and how did you focus in on something?
Okay, how did I pick a topic? That one was easy because to get into the school, you have to write an essay on what matters to you. So I decided to stay to what I wrote. Okay. Right, basically, what I wrote was about sustainability and solving big socioeconomic issues in Africa, basically. Yes. Sustainability because half of the neighborhood I grew up in Africa, in Benin, has disappeared because of the rising of the sea level. I grew up on a coastal town by the Atlantic Ocean, so that's number one. And I was in Paris in 2015 when they signed the Paris Climate Agreement with net zero. So we felt at that time that there was a momentum for an agreement signed both by the US, Russia, and China. That never happened again in history. To solve that problem. And so I was, at that time at EY, I started to get involved with ESG, sustainability. So that's number one. The topic chose me. Number two is you can't be at the GSB this year and not talk about AI. And during the pandemic, most of my clients started to allow people to work from home. So they need to change how they work, the processes. People need to have... I was involved in a lot of consulting projects where we have to redesign some processes to allow people to work from home. And I started to realize the importance of technology, even within the finance function, which is where I spent most of my career. And so because of that, I knew that I wanted to explore more how technology can disrupt the finance function, and particularly AI. So I came here to explore how AI and climate change will disrupt the finance function, and also with the long-term goal to solve big problem in Africa. So those are the three topics, and I organized the year around these topics. Sorry.
Those aren't small topics, right?
Those aren't
big,
small topics.
bolder topics,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And I'm sure that you can get lost in them. How do you kind of now, those are big areas. How did you try and focus in? You mean the AI thing is quite clear,
yes.
focusing on the finance function. But if you look at sustainability, yes. I mean, does the conversations guide you? Do you have does a professor guide you? How do you zoom in on a particular point? Because and it's also fairly short. It's not
right.
like a master's dissertation,
yes.
which is months. It's
right.
a few weeks, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
So someone at the CMC gave me an advice at the beginning of the year, which is it's almost like the scaffold approach, where you need to build on what you are good at. So when I approach sustainability, I approach it from a climate finance standpoint. Okay. And I did a project on carbon accounting, right? You see, okay. Because carbon accounting can help you to assess throughout the life cycle of a product what is the carbon emission, and then help you to make capital allocation decision, for instance, right? This is, I'm using my skills and I'm building on that. When I look at AI, I'm only look at AI for CFO's team, which is 5 function, forecasting, treasury, tax, accounting and reporting, and so on, right? So the way to stay focused is to link the topic to something I'm already good at, I feel comfortable, and then to add something on top, right? Obviously, there are other topics like, we all did data decision, I really like learning how to code in R and things like that, where you have to experience different things. But my approach was to incrementally add more skills to what I know.
Awesome. I mean, I think it's us three coming from organizations where we've spent a lot of time in one organization. I think it's great to reach out to different people and
Yes.
get great different perspectives, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure over the course of the year, your perspective has changed, and you probably went from, as you mean, pitching a venture to
Yes.
going back to Africa to going back to EY. So, can you give us a sense of what you're thinking post graduation in terms of your plans? And, if you imagine your career 5-10 years out, what have you learned from the GSP that will shape your career?
Wow. I've learned a lot from the GSB. I think if anything I wanted to say to all the people who will listen to this podcast is that year will transform your life forever, right? Forever. And that itself, it's worth, I don't know how much it costs now to come to the GSB with your family, but it's worth it. So one thing that I'm confident now to do is I will allow myself to create a venture and at least one failure, right? Because I can always get back to my feet. The GSB gave me that confidence. I work with a lot of professors here. I pitch my ideas to a lot of people. I receive great feedback, sometimes constructive too. So I have that confidence. So the long term in the 5 years will be to go back to Africa and try to create that venture. In the next immediate term, right after graduation, I will want to go back to consulting. I'm doing currently my Spring 390 on AI in the finance function for CFOs. I started 3 weeks ago, 20 interviews, a lot of contacts. I built a database of 100 solutions out there. So I want to continue in that space. So that's one of the roles I wanted to play either at EY, where I currently work in Chicago, or somewhere, to stay in that ecosystem. Yeah. So. And I need to give you credit, Sasha, because one day we run into each other again. We started to talk about our goals, and you talk about a session from Graham Weaver that you attended where he talked about the genie. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And then you share, I think, your notes with me.
Mm-hmm.
I took that seriously. I did that. I projected myself 5 years, 10 years. And I have to create a venture. I will be missed if I don't do that, right? So I think that confidence, that inner strength, it's something I acquire here by being exposed to other people. And it's okay if we don't get it right. At least we tried, and that's what is most important.
Yeah, I need to go read those notes again, I think.
Yes, those notes
and remind
are great.
myself.
They were great. Sasha, thank you.
Sasha, you sound like the mastermind behind the MSX, like controlling Abraham's fortunes.
I really didn't know that. Well, before we wrap up, I think we have to talk about 3 very important people in your life that enabled you to do this. We can't end the conversation without talking about Mariage and your kids.
Yes. So I wanted to, that's very important because I came here with Mariange and my 2 kids. Mariange is my high school sweetheart. As you know, I celebrated my birthday in December on campus.
With a flash dance.
With a flash dance from Mariange and most of my classmates, at least 50 of them. It's amazing.
I was there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes this is something you could not have planned, right? Sometimes we underestimate the importance of your significant others during that journey. And actually, it was very, very important for me what Marianne did, not only with the kids at home, but also supporting me with the class. And that moment, for instance, with the flash dance, I watch that video maybe once every 2 weeks, right?
Wow.
Just to remember that could not have been possible without her. And so there is so much you can achieve by yourself. Yeah. I know here at the GSB, it sounds like we can change lives, but we need to work with other people. We need some support from other people to effectively change life. And Marianne has been that support for me. I'm very grateful. the two kids, Melissa and Adam, they're the joy of my life. One of the commitment I made to my goals is to be at the dinner table every night, right? And that has been possible most of the days. They're very kind. The transition for them was not always easy, but they tried, and now they don't want to go back to Chicago.
Oh, wow.
So
That's a big change.
yeah, it's a big change. And Marianne is going back to Chicago in 2 weeks now. So I will be by myself with the kids. It's a promotion. And yeah, so that was amazing. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give them a shout.
No, I came to the GSB just, by myself. And I am just so thoroughly impressed with all of the support that everybody's SOs and partners have provided, whether they're here or not, whether they're, kids or not. It's just amazing,
yes. And I wanted to add another member of my family, our dog, Kiara. She's a golden retriever. She has been my partner with our long walks after difficult classes, especially touchy-feely on Thursday evening.
Yeah.
She supported me a lot to clear my mind after the difficult sessions.
It's a huge community, right? Everybody contributes in one shape or another.
Yeah.
But Abram, it's been wonderful just to listen in. I just... we're just listening to the interview for the 15 minutes about the frameworks and the goals. I think it's super interesting how you kind of give yourself the room to fail, but at the same time be really deliberate about how you're pursuing these goals. And I think your impact on the community at the GSP is incredible. So I think it's just great to see, how you are purposeful about making the most of every single quarter. And I think that's a great piece of advice for everybody. You just come in here and you give yourself the room to make mistakes, but you can take these small little goals and make momentum as the year goes by.
Yeah, I think setting the goals and what you said, being purposeful about your time here, because it is so limited and there is, so much going on that we can choose from. I loved the way that you kind of structured your year with the different themes. I kind of wish that I had done that, but at the same time, everybody's journey here is so unique.
Yes.
We spend so much time with each other, but we all come from such different places and such different walks of life, and we all want to achieve very different things after being here. And so everyone's experience, even while we're here at the GSB, can be so different.
Yes.
And that's okay. So I think having that self-compassion is also extremely important.
Yes. And ultimately, what we do here is important, but what we are going to do after the school is much more important.
Yeah.
So I know we talk about the goals and the framework.
Yeah.
It's great, but what we are going to do, what lies ahead, it's more exciting.
Yeah.
And that's
true.
Important.
Absolutely.
That's true. I think I love you've put a positive spin on this whole ending chapter of the GSP. And on that note, we have, I think, 3 more exciting podcasts to come.
Yes.
We're working on something really exciting in the next couple of weeks, and we've got some alumni coming and one more person from the class. So we have a nice lineup ready to go for the last bit of our experience, and we'll catch everybody in a week's time.
Thanks.
Cheers,
Thank
everyone.
you for having me.
Awesome. Cheers.